Closers get paid.
All right, now let's get into closing your way through life. Let's get into some sales techniques. This is really going to help you peak perform. Speaking of peak performance, a lot of it, I would say 80% of selling is psychology. We're closing our way through life. I don't care what you do, who you are, you're in sales. You got to sell your kids on eating their whole entire dinner or whatnot, right? You're always in sales. And the person with the most certainty usually wins. Think about that. The person with the most certainty. So selling really is, when you're doing it professionally, there is a system to it. There is a formula for it. A lot of people aren't good at sales at first. They have a negative association to it. They face rejection. They come into sales and they want to check it out, try it out, and see what happens. Same with your own business. If you're starting a new business, you need to be prepared for rejection. You need to be prepared for failure. You need to welcome failure, because that's how you're going to learn what not to do and what you need to do to become successful. And you need to accept that as that's part of the trade. And that's why it pays so well, is because most people, they don't want to deal with it. They would rather have the easy way, right? And not face personally being emotionally connected to some rejection or something, being told no, that really isn't personal at all, right? And it's usually because most people don't know. They're just reacting to you. They don't know what you have to offer them. But if they sat down and listened, they'd probably sign up, right? So, you know, it's really looking at things properly. So success is 80% psychology. And the most successful people I've ever seen, obviously they've had the best psychology. So I'm going to give you an example about peak performing, and I'm going to tell you about what I call the magic success formula, right? And how that really changed my game, and how I've taught that to a lot of people, and how it's improved their volume, which improves mine. Because if they're not successful, I'm not successful. And I help them understand that early on. I'm their coach. I'm their mentor. I need them to role play and practice what I'm teaching them, but they have to have a system. So peak performance. Over the years, there's been two people that stand out the most for me when it comes to volume. Name of the game, volume. Edwin, years ago in the alarm industry, every home he got into, bam, he'd write it up, and it was record time. It wasn't an hour and a half presentation. It was 15 minutes, 20 minutes, bam. And he'd walk out of there, they'd be all enrolled, happy, everybody's happy. And he really didn't have any cancellations. And I just thought, wow, that's interesting. And obviously, if I had appointments, I gave them to Edwin, here, because I knew he would close it. Years later, I come across a gentleman that's killing it in security. He's doing 100 plus a month out of one small team, a van, if you will. Most offices don't even consider doing that. They're not even coming close to that. But Josh was a numbers guy, right? He knew the numbers. If he was going to do 100 systems a month, he knew he needed 5 reps, each doing 5 calls to him a night. That's win, lose, or draw. That's 5 people that had a question about security. What are you doing here? Can you leave me your card? Didn't matter what the question was. It was a numbers game. Just call me. And he'd go up there, he'd go up there, he'd go up there. He had 5 people calling 5 a night, which he called blackout. And we still use that term in our program today. Our guys black out. They have some kind of structure and some type of way of keeping on track each day, knowing what their job what we expect of them to do, and we can monitor if they're working or not and where they're weak, if they're not getting the calls or setting the appointments. Anyway, so Josh got 5 guys, 5 leads a night. That's 25 a night. And if he closed 1 out of 5, right, he's at 5 sales a day. That's 5 a day. That's 25 a week. It's 100 a month. And he'd be upset if he didn't hit those numbers. He was determined to get those numbers because that was the lifestyle he decided he was going to live at, and he liked living at, was at that lifestyle. So he was very, very focused and very adamant about his numbers and the commitment from his people doing their job so he could get them paid. And it was a beautiful thing to see those numbers. Now, the numbers worked, but what else was interesting is I went out and I spent probably a week with Josh trying to pick his mind and find out what was different. What made him stand out? I wanted to know what his thoughts and feelings were whenever he got a call or when he went to a customer's home or when he went through that door. And I wanted to break it down and find out, what did he think, what did he say to himself, what did he do? And I started modeling this or teaching this to other people that started to get some really good results. And what stood out to me more than anything was that the reps, the majority of people that were going to a lead, so to speak, going to a customer's door that had a question about security, how much is it, what's it come with, or why are you here, it doesn't matter. They went up there to try and get somebody's interest and talk to them about security and find some kind of hot button, if you will, and build a system around that, and then build value and try and close and get an order. Well, Josh didn't do any of that. He knew that if that customer was still there when he got there, that door was still open, the store was open, and they were obviously interested in what he had to say. So his belief level was really high at that point. But he also believed that if they let him in the house to explain how it worked, they bought, just by simply letting him in. So he had asked 2 or 3 times, well, you mind if I show you what we can do for you guys? Where's your old panel at? Whatever he did, when they let him in, his belief was they bought. Now I'm going to give it to them. I'm not going to ask them if they want it. I'm just going to help them get this product and this service. It was great. He didn't ask them if they wanted it. And so I realized that she started with the end in mind, where the other reps were trying to get to where he was at the gate. It took them 30, 40 minutes to get where he started at. They had to get a buying signal. They had to get a hot button. They had to see some interest, or they had to hear something, see something in order to get their confidence up. And that's fine, but look at the difference when the way they're looking at something, their psychology, and the results based off how somebody else is looking at it. And give that some thought and ask yourself, are you getting leads? And if somebody's willing to listen to you, what do you believe about that lead? What is your thought and feeling? Do you believe that, okay, now I got to go sell it? Or they're interested, obviously they're interested, so now I'm going to help them. What else triggers do you have when you're going through your presentation that builds your confidence and your certainty as well as your customers? So think about those things, and can you improve that? Can you start seeing it better and believing it better? If they're willing to sit down and ask you, and obviously they wouldn't be wasting their time if they didn't probably want what you offered, right? If you could just tell yourself the truth and you could just help them get your product, it might really give you such an advantage of your closing ratio and bring it up to a whole new level and open up a whole new opportunity of income and cash flow coming in. Getting better at what you do. So really the psychology. So think about that. Can I look at things better? Can I look at this, in particular, can I look at this better than how I've been looking at it? Give that some thought and write that down. And if you say, yeah, you look at that, condition that in your mind. Make that your new belief. Adopt it and start applying it in your presentation, in your sales, or whatever it may be that you're doing, okay? So give that some thought. The second part of this is getting better at what you do. When I went from selling Kirby vacuum cleaners for $2,000 a vacuum, Kirby guys, we were pretty prideful. We think we could sell anything, right? How do you sell a $2,000 vacuum? They're like, I think they're almost $4,000 now, and you think you could sell anything. Well, when I first started giving alarms away, they didn't have to put any money down, come out of pocket. It was very simple. And I couldn't give a free alarm away. It was a free alarm as long as they took care of service. I couldn't give it away. And it started to mess with me. My mind started to get really, really frustrated and doubtful. I didn't know really what to do, but then it dawned on me I needed help. So I made the call, right? I called my old Kirby distributor, and I said, hey, Wayne, can you help me out? He said, sure, what's going on? I told him. He said, all right, are you using the formula? And I said, no, I hadn't been using the formula. The magic formula, we called it, right? And it's very simple, so write this down. The magic formula is very, very simple. And you'll see this in commercials. Watch for it in commercials. Watch for it in infomercials. But the moment I started to apply the magic success formula, bam, I started getting sales. And then I started teaching it to the guys I was recruiting. They started getting sales. It changed everything from right then and there. So if you're struggling with getting sales and volume, think about this and see if this is an area that you can add to improving what you are already doing or what your people are doing or your future people can be doing. So here's the formula. It's got 3 parts to it. And the first part is exposing the problem. Once again, finding out what problem does your product or service solve? What kind of challenges are they having? People buy what they want, not what they need, but they need to know there's a problem that needs to be solved. And the more they get associated to that problem, they see the problem, they understand the problem, they talk about the problem, they think about the problem, they feel the problem, the more they want the problem to go away, right? So exposing a problem. Second part is very simple. It's solving that problem. How does your product or service solve the problem? And the third part is getting some simple tie down. So the customer is saying yes, I would. That makes sense. And those are very simple questions you ask. And in fact, the whole process is just asking the right questions. Doing a little bit of investigating on the customer, finding out what concerns they have, and not telling them what concerns they have. Selling is not telling. It's simply asking the right questions, and probably just as important, not answering them. I've seen so many rookies, I call them, ask a customer a question and then answer it for them, and the customer's like, well, how do you know I feel that way, right? I don't even really know you. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to make that mistake. The customer will not lie to themselves. They'll believe whatever they tell themselves or tell you. So it's just guiding them down the questions on the path to a sell. And the close should be real simple. It should just be the ending of a very fine presentation that you've already had many closes, little tie downs along the way, so it just makes sense. It's a no-brainer. And then you assume the sell. At the end, you just simply ask for the order as if they're already going to get it. You just ask them, like my favorite is, how do you spell your last name? And I look down and I wait for the answer. I ask expectingly, I look and I wait. And when they give me their last name, they bought. I don't have to ask them, well, do you want to go ahead and do this? They'll stop you if they don't want it at that point. And sometimes that happens too. They may have a little hesitation. That's normal. A little bit of buyer's remorse in advance. That's okay, right? But don't get hung up on it, right? Don't buy the objection with your commission, right, so to speak. I'm going to teach you about objections here as well here in a second. But there's a formula for that as well. But the exposing the problem, ask yourself, what problems are there that my product or service can solve? You need to know what that does. So you have value and you believe in your product and service. In fact, you are the first sale you should ever make. You should sell yourself first before you sell anybody else. It's really a transformation of emotion, right? And when you feel it, when you believe in it, when you're into it, like you're the alarm guy, or you're the the solar person, or you're the real estate agent, you're so proud of what you do, people want to do business with that person, right? The person that's really into what they do. So you really want to be sold yourself. And if you're having a challenge with that, maybe it's the wrong product, maybe it's the wrong service, right? Or maybe you just have a confidence issue that you can work on. And simply, if you'll just do what I call the 10-10-10 rule, right? Write down 10 reasons why somebody should have your product or service, 10 reasons why they should get it from you, and 10 reasons why they should get it from you today, right? Write those numbers down. And if you're having a hard time with all of them, ask a few people in your office or in your industry and see what they think. And condition those in your mind. Accept those, believe them. And then that's what's going to come out of you. So back to exposing a problem. Expose a problem, solve a problem, and get the tie down. If you watch commercials, you'll see them exposing problems, and you'll see their solution to the problem, and then they'll ask for an order typically, right? Once you see the problem being solved with their product. And you'll see that in infomercials. They do a much better job because they have more time to show all these things. And they'll usually have some type of buy now factor, which is a reason for you to take action today, right? Buy now factors are great when you give a person a little bit of logic to go ahead and move forward at getting your product or service today while you're here, right? And I'll tell you what, we do this very simple. But once again, expose a problem, solve a problem, get a tie down, and telling's not selling. It's just asking the right questions. Make sure you have question-based selling in your program. You know what questions to be asking people so that they can really sell themselves on their own problem and sell themselves on the solution, right? So that they basically close themselves at the end. It makes sense to them. So I'm going to give you an example, and saying that a few examples. Let me back it up and give you an example on exposing a problem. I'll give you security for an example. If you're the customer, I might ask you, Mary, when it comes to your family safety, what type of concerns have you had? Police, fire, medical, burglary, home invasion? And she'll pick one like, well, burglary. Oh, great, here's what we can do for you. That's not going to work. I'm going to ask her, well, what about burglary? What's going on? The more that person tells me about their problem and the pain they have associated to it, the more they're going to want it solved. So then I'd say, well, I'm sure that's what you want your system to cover you for. So here's how we're going to do that. And then I'd tell them about, let's say, the piece of the equipment that prevents them from walking in on a break-in. I would paint a picture, show them how that worked. Then I'd ask her, Mary, if all it did one time was prevent you or your kids from walking on a break-in or a burglary, would you feel better having it? Well, yes. There's the tie down. So when they say yes, they're buying it. It's a no-brainer. It just makes sense to get enrolled. And when I assume it, it's real simple, Mary. How do you spell your guys' last name? And I just assume the order. They enroll in the program. So it's very basic. Think about how you can apply that in what you're doing. Now, I also believe that people know the price of everything and the value of nothing, right? They know how much stuff costs. But until they see and understand the value, they're going to object. So when you build value about your product and service, the benefits they're going to receive, the price comes down as the value goes up. The more value, the easier it is for them to justify. And if they're on the fence thinking, well, should I do this? Having a reason to purchase today, a buy now factor, what we call our first home showing, the first time we're here is the best time to get involved. Here's why. And we'll let them know that while our techs are in the area, right, instead of having them come back later and spend money for that, we'd rather pass that savings down to you guys. And you'll save X amount of dollars today by going ahead and taking advantage of our same-day offer. Well, how do you guys spell your last name? And they're like, oh, well, I want to take advantage of the same-day offer. How much is it? And we let them know it's a couple $100 you'll save just by doing it now. You're going to do it anyway. Now's the best time. Today's the best day. And you let them know why, and you assume it. So you have a buy now factor. Think about what kind of buy now factor somebody can have, you can have to offer to somebody without putting pressure on them about getting your product or your service, right? There's got to be a motive, like a little bit of common sense that makes sense. Just go ahead and do it now instead of waiting till later. Because when people wait and think about it, they typically never do it. They get busy in life. They get distracted. Things come up, and they have good intentions, but life happens. And then you go by there, somebody else has made the deal. Another closer got paid. You got them interested. And you're not there to go advertise for free and get people interested in what you do. You're there to get them to sign on the line that is dotted, so to speak, right? Get their business today while you're there. And that's really the name of the game. So expose the problem, solve the problem, get a commitment, right? Telling is not selling, it's asking the right questions. And not answering them, let them talk, and then assume. Practice your assumption. Once you get that down, you can build value, right? Understanding how your product or service solves problems, and you can teach that to your people. They'll get better at what they're doing. Their closing average will come up. Your retention will last so much longer because they're effective at what they do. They're making money because they're getting deals. Okay, so think about that a lot. Now, let's talk about objections. Objections are normal. People object because they really don't have time. They're preoccupied with something else going on. They don't want to be pressured or sold something they don't want or need. And that's all fine, right? But they're going to object. And they object based off of value. So there's typically 3 times I like to talk about handling objections. And that's what we're going to have time for today is the 3 main times. And I think if you have these 3, you'll do pretty good, right? The first time is before it comes up, right? So let's say you're selling security once again. I'll use that as a reference. And you notice they have guns on their door, right? You're going up to a home and they have gun signs on their door. So pretty much that person got their own defense system in play and they're just waiting for the opportunity. That kind of mindset. Well, if we can handle it before it comes up and let them know, that the security system, oh, you guys have guns. Oh, great, I love shooting guns, right? I'm a gun guy. Did you know your alarm system's designed to protect your guns and prevent them from getting ripped off, and that's how they get out on the street? Here, I'll explain how that works. When you handle that in advance, they don't come back and say, well, no, I'm good with the security system because I got guns. You've already overcome that one. It's very difficult for them to use that as an objection. Same with dogs, right? Same type of thing. So think about how you can overcome objections before they come up. But you really don't want to bring up objections. You want to be very careful with that. You don't want to just create an objection, right? That helps when you understand your customer or you can tell that they're going to probably have this certain objection, and you can overcome it before it comes up. The other time is when they come up. And I like to use the feel, felt, found. If you haven't learned that yet, learn that. I understand how you feel, right? Instead of battling the objection, well, why do you feel that way? The wall of resistance is just going to go up and get thicker and higher. You don't want that. You want to bring it down. Oh, yeah, okay, Mary, I know how you feel. I understand exactly how you feel. Yeah, I felt the same way too. Or, some of your neighbors down the street, they felt the same way too. But here's what they found. So feel, felt, found, right? And then you go right around that objection. The last time is never. Just simply ignore it, right? A lot of people have what they call smokescreen objections. Just throw them out there. And the real objection usually is they don't want to put the money out, or they don't have the money, and they don't want to tell you that, maybe especially in front of their kids, right? That their credit's bad, or they don't have the money, or whatever it may be. And so you just kind of ignore it, and you just keep moving forward. I seen that done years ago with a friend of mine named Lance, and we were in Madera, California. We were out selling Kirby's, and he just ignored this lady's objection. Not in a rude way, by the way. She was just blurting out their objections. She wanted the Kirby really bad. Her husband wasn't there. He was out of town, and it was late. We were shampooing her carpet, and he was sitting at the edge of the couch with her, and he was going over the agreement. She'd already agreed to get it, then she started kind of backing out a little bit. And she says, my husband's riding a lawnmower and needs a new motor. And it was just, she wanted the Kirby. And he just kind of shooed it away like there was a fly in the air. I remember him doing that. And he just kept riding, right? Now, had she recognized that, it might have come off wrong. I'm not saying go out there and shoo him away, but he just kind of went like that. I don't think he realized he did it. I'm like, wow. He just ignored it and just kept moving. And she fell in love with the Kirby, got the Kirby, was glad she did, and the sale took place. But if you buy the objections, you pay for it with your commission. Oh, your husband's lawnmower, yeah, okay, well, then we better wait. No, the lawnmower salesman's going to come out and sell him a brand new John Deere for 2 or 3 times the money, and her work's going to continually remain hard, and the house isn't going to be as clean as she'd like or needs it to be. So, help her get what they need. That's how I feel. So 3 times they handle objections: before, when, and never. So really think about your objection handling skills, and I really recommend that you role play and practice handling objections, right? In this office behind me, we have doors on the wall, literally screwed to the wall. They're real doors. You knock on them, and there's a doormat and somebody on the other side rejecting you. And we practice the rejections more than the pitch. Once you get your approach down, then we want to practice the rebuttals, things that people come up with and say to try and run you off or tell you no or whatnot. And we just kind of overcome them and handle them in a polite way and keep moving forward. And usually once we get past that 3rd or 4th small objection, we're really not really sure we want to do this right now, whatever it may be. Okay, I understand. Not a problem. And but like I was saying, here's what we're out here doing today. And they keep moving forward. They role play and practice. They get better at it. And you want to role play and you want to practice whatever it is you're doing, and you want your people to role play and practice what they're doing, from the magic formula to the 3 times they handle objections, selling's not telling. You want to really get them good at this stuff. If you're expecting to earn money off of them out producing sales for you, if they're out there talking to people, you want to get them good at it and have them practicing this stuff. Their confidence level goes up, their skill set goes up, their income goes up, and you're teaching it to them. And you're their mentor, you're their hero, because you're showing them how to use this stuff. And you should really be asking yourself, how can I apply what I'm learning here, and how can I teach that to somebody else? When you do that, you will learn it well enough to teach it, so that means you're really good at it, and you will grow beyond belief. Your awareness, your ability, and your people. Okay? They'll look at you like you're a mentor, and you're there for them and you're helping them, and you will be. So think about how you can do that with this program, how you're going to be able to take what I'm showing you from the numbers, from the peak performer psychology, the master success formula, the value building portion, the objection portion, and the assumption. On a 1 to 10, how well are you assuming the sale at the end? If you're not asking for the order, you're losing business. You have to ask expectingly. And you need to practice that in the mirror. It's real simple. Here, let me go ahead and get some basic information. What's your guys' how do you spell your last name? Practice it over and over until it becomes second nature, and then go out and apply it and watch what happens. When you're assuming properly, you'll start getting the results. Your sales will go up just off of assumptions. I have a rule, and you should have this rule, I believe, as well. No matter what feedback somebody's giving you, if they sit there with their arms crossed and not even a heartbeat, right, and you've gone through a presentation or you're showing them your product or service, you never leave without asking for the order. You're not a mind reader. You don't know really what's going on in their mind, but you just need to ask for the order. And you will be amazed at how many people, yeah, that sounds good, and move forward that you may have walked away from. So that's a rule. Always ask for the order. Another rule is if you don't get this sale, if you don't get it, you can't go to sleep until you ask yourself like 10 times, what could I have done better? What did I miss? What could I learn from that? Go through those questions. And then usually, the aha moment comes and you've got growth. And you never miss it again, right? You've grown from that one missed sale that you may be thinking, I wasted my time there for 2 hours and you get paid. No, you get paid in your knowledge, right? Your growth, your experience. And so when you're asking yourself, then you're really learning. You learn more from the misses than you do the wins. You make more money, I say, off the misses than you ever do from the wins. And you really want to see it that way. That's my psychology. And I teach that to my people so they grow and they don't get discouraged. They welcome them. So that's really, really big. If you can record your presentation, I highly recommend you record your presentation so that you can listen to it later and listen to, the areas that is coming through clearly, where you're building the value, you're exposing problems, listen for your assumption, how you're overcoming or handling objections, how you're answering questions, who's in control, right? How it feels, and listen for areas of improvements. Like in between the lines, you'll hear, I didn't answer that question. I talked over the customer. And those little things, those little breakthroughs are huge growth. I highly recommend you do that and have your people do that. Record and listen and critique and get better. Get better at what you do.
Closers get paid. Closers get paid. Closers get paid.